boss baby is big mad that he is not getting his way.
Why are you shouting, Donald?
Because I'm erratic.
I'm a deal maker. I make deals, beautiful deals, so beautiful.
Trump's diabolical scheme to cheat by rigging election maps is falling apart because Republicans in Indiana, they don't have the votes.
You're gonna need congressional approval and you don't have the votes.
President Trump has grossly underestimated Indiana's resistance to his agenda after he successfully pressured Texas, Missouri, and North Carolina to redraw their congressional maps. He really thought Indiana was going to be an easy target. But Hoosiers have been making their feelings very clear since the first time Vice President Vance touched down in Indianapolis to meet with the governor.
JD is here, speaking with Governor Braun right now.
Finally breaking his silence on Wednesday, Republican leader of the Indiana State Senate, Roderick Bray, put out a statement that said plainly, when it comes to Trump's election rigging scheme, Republicans just don't have the votes.
Congressional redistricting stalls here in Indiana amid pressure from President Trump.
Looks like it'll come down to simple math. Indiana Republicans just don't have the votes to support redistricting.
House Minority Leader Phil Giaquinta is not surprised that the state Republicans do not have enough votes.
Legislators, both Republican and Democrat, I believe that our votes reflect the will of our constituents. And Hoosiers are an independent bunch. And we're not going to take orders from Washington, D.C.
Even former Indiana governor and Republican darling Mitch Daniels opposes this effort, penning this op-ed that came out this week in the Washington Post. I don't underestimate the pressure Indiana's leaders are under, and I empathize with them in the predicament they face. But I hope they'll quietly and respectfully pass on this idea. Their duty is to the citizens and future of our state, not to a national political organization or a temporary occupant of the White House. Damn, Daniels, that's as close to a mic drop as a white dude named Mitch from Indiana is ever gonna get. And Mitch's sentiment is reflected in recent polling numbers in Indiana showing how deeply unpopular this move is. Even 59% of Republicans in Indiana are saying hell no. President Trump first started pressuring Indiana Republicans to redraw the maps in his favor back in July. And since that time, he has sent Vice President Vance and Senator Banks a few times to Indianapolis. He's also hosted Indiana Republicans in D.C. to try to convince them to hop on board with his scheme. But from the beginning, Indiana Democrats and some incredible grassroots organizations have been mobilizing to resist this takeover.
Lots of people here in the State House. They were in the rotunda, hundreds of people gathering, many of them with signs, and they were making it clear their stance on Vice President J.D. Vance's visit here to the state capitol. Vance leaving the State House after a morning meeting with top Republican lawmakers, as we have heard, and including Governor Braun. Well, they talked about the potential effort to redraw Indiana's congressional districts.
Democracy doesn't entitle an occupant of the Oval Office to anything. He's got to work through the constitutional process. He's got to abide the rule of law just like every one of us.
Speaker Todd Houston sharing a statement with 13 News today after the VP's visit, saying in part, quote, I appreciate the opportunity to meet with Vice President Vance today and share many of the successes we're experiencing in Indiana. We had a meaningful discussion, heard the Vice President's perspective on a number of topics, and will continue conversations as we work to advance Indiana and deliver results for Hoosiers.
From a communications perspective, Republicans' desperation to get this done and please President Trump has become increasingly frantic in recent weeks. Back in September, Senator Jim Banks, and lifetime member of the Schittler Youth, spoke to a conference room full of MAGAs at a hotel in Indianapolis and was grasping at the straw of tying redistricting to the death of Charlie Kirk. He told the crowd, they killed Charlie Kirk. The least we can do is redistrict Indiana into a 9-0 map. Seriously, Jim? That is a super weak argument. And then last week, Steve Bannon crawled out from under his bridge to welcome Indiana State Rep and MAGA enthusiast Andrew Ireland to the war room.
My understanding, we might have hit a speed bump in Indiana, sir?
That's exactly right. We got to get it done. I feel like we have hit a bit of a speed bump here in Barn Red, Indiana. Right now, we still haven't called a special session. We're kind of in a holding pattern right here. And I understand, we're trying to kind of figure out where everybody's at on that. But at the end of the day, the clock is ticking. We only have so much time to get this done. And every day we wait is another day that, we're risking not getting it done.
That was a disaster of an interview that was really painful to watch, and I'm still confused about what they thought they were going to accomplish there. No arguments were offered, nothing of substance was discussed. It was just Bannon and Ireland, a couple of Trump-loving yahoos, bitching in disbelief that this hasn't already been done.
Can you make that clear to people of what the hang-up is? Is something with the establishment? Is the Mitch Daniels wing of the party doesn't like fairness, doesn't like to have a map that really represents people in Congress? I mean, there's got to be something or this would have gotten done.
Well, I got to tell you again, I don't get it.
It's super obvious that Republicans are not sending out their A-team to try to sell this strategy.
Honestly, to me, this seems like the easiest vote in the world. Frankly, we should have had a 9-0 map a long time ago. We are a bright red state. I mean, we're as red as a stop sign.
Which is it, Andrew? Is Indiana barn red or stop sign red? And you know what? It actually doesn't matter what simile he prefers because he's wrong, period. Don't need a figure of speech when I got math. Based on recent federal and statewide elections, even being super generous and rounding up in Republicans' favor, Indiana votes about 60-40 Republican to Democrat. And even with those numbers, Republicans already have an incredible advantage in Indiana. 82% of the state's congressional delegation and 73% of the state legislature are Republican. They should just stop being greedy and be happy with the advantage they already have. But despite this little bit of good news for the MAGA resistance in Indiana, Democrats and nonprofit organizations leading the resistance are encouraging Hoosiers to keep calling their lawmakers because this fight is not over.
Republican Senator Liz Brown was the first senator to publicly support redistricting. On social media, she calls on Governor Braun to call us into session and let's get this done. On X, Governor Braun said he is still having positive conversations and that he is confident State House Republicans will come around.
Republicans have such an advantage in the Indiana State House that 20 representatives and 15 senators could vote no, and Republicans could still pass Trump's map with a simple majority. State Senator Liz Brown, as mentioned in that Wish TV story, is one of the state Republicans who is in favor of these new maps that President Trump wants. And her reasoning might be what actually gets some Republicans on board should they change their mind in the future. She doesn't want to get primaried. And Trump's allies are already pledging to put a ton of money behind her primary challenger. That might be why she was on board so soon. And while some are seeing this as a sign that Indiana Republicans are growing a backbone, I am way more cynical. I think that most Republicans who are resisting this pressure from Trump are doing so because they are reading the writing on the wall. Trump's popularity is tanking, and the resistance to this effort is reflected in those poll numbers that show how unpopular this move is and how unpopular Trump is in Indiana. The MAGA agenda, especially on the economy, is really, really in the toilet. And these Republican legislators are probably willing to roll the dice that even if they get a primary challenger, they'll be able to fend off that challenge by using this as a campaign talking point, telling voters, hey, look, I did not bow to Trump's pressure. I'm on your side. Democrats in Indiana, along with the grassroots organization Mad Voters, are encouraging people to keep up with their social media and websites for the latest updates and keep calling their legislators. Like I said, this fight is far from over. Coming to you from Indiana in a sea full of soybeans that we cannot sell thanks to Trump's tariffs. For Really American Media, I am Corinne Straight. Remember to subscribe and share this video with the people in your life, especially the Hoosiers in your life. Let's keep this conversation going. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see y'all next time.